So you're going to list your home and you need to sign Form 200, which is the listing agreement. What is that form? Why do you need to sign it? And what does it mean? In this video, I'll explain. Hey there, Nick Venditis from Royal LePage Performance Realty in Ottawa, Ontario. And this is one of the videos where we walk you through the forms that you would use in the purchase or sale of a home in Ontario. So this one is OREA Form 200. This is the listing agreement. It's the seller representation agreement, authority to offer for sale. What this form is used for is to have the brokerage and the seller agree that the listing brokerage has a mandate to sell the home. So it's a listing agreement. So let's go from the top. It's important for you to understand these forms as a home seller so that you know what you are signing, you know what you are committing to when you sign one of these, that nobody is talking you into something that's not a good idea for you. So here's what you need to understand. The first part just says this is a multiple listing service agreement, so MLS agreement, or an exclusive listing agreement. An MLS listing is when your home goes on the multiple listing service. That's realtor.ca, MLS.ca, whatever the back end system is for your real estate board. And then it also usually gets published for most listings, gets published to other brokerage websites as well, and gets distributed from the MLS so they can have a broad reach in terms of where it shows up. An exclusive listing agreement is something that you might sign before it goes on the MLS. So you might have a separate exclusive listing agreement. We do this for a lot of the listings that we do as we're getting a home prepared. And we do that for a few reasons. Number one, sometimes we use it to test drive a different price. If we think the market might bear a higher price, we can try it out during the exclusive listing agreement without having to potentially do a price reduction on the MLS. Number two, it gives us a way to market the property, or a mandate to market the property before it ever hits the MLS. So we do a lot of social marketing, so a little bit of print marketing, agent-to-agent calls and things like that to try and find a buyer before it even hits the MLS, or have some buyers that are interested and ready to line up when it hits the MLS. Below that, so once you've chosen what that is, and most of the time it's going to be an MLS listing, then we have the seller or the brokerage identified, and I have some wrong information there. I have it as 123 Sesame Street. I like to have the dummy broker being Friendly Realty, but I filled in half of Royal LePage Performance Realty, which is my brokerage. Anyway, so we identify the brokerage, we identify the sellers, which in this case is Mark and Mary Messier, and they are selling their home at 628 Gaines Drive here in Ottawa. There's a time limit, so it says the seller hereby gives the listing brokerage the exclusive and irrevocable right to act as the seller's agent, commencing at 12:01 on the 10th day of August 2022. And then there's a time on the other end. So in our board, I believe it needs to be at least 3 months. I would have to check on that, but we do our listing agreements for 6 months less a day. So 5 months, almost to the end of the 6 month there. And but a listing agreement can be for any length of time as long as it complies with the board rules. Sometimes our exclusive listings are only a week or two before the listing launches. But during that time, that is how long the realtor has to have the property listed actively and has a mandate to market it and negotiate offers. If it goes past that date, the listing agreement is expired and you have to extend it or sign a new one, or simply, let it expire. If it goes past 6 months, there's a spot where the seller needs to initial. And next is the price. So we're offering this property for a listing price of $860,000. And that's written out in numbers and words there. There's a spot the seller will need to sign to make sure that they know that they are not currently in a listing agreement on this property with any other agent that's still current. That way you don't end up in a situation where you might possibly be paying commission twice. So let's go through the numbers. Number one is definitions and interpretations. This just says that everything, buyer, seller, the scope of the agreement, the price that it's going to be listed at, are all defined above. Number two is quite important. It's the commission. The commission sets out, so in Ontario, you can have a property listed for a fixed amount, you can have it listed for a percentage, but not both at the same time. So you can't have it a fixed amount plus percentage. I'm not sure why that is, but that's, you know, that's something that's one of the rules for Ontario. This one is listed at the commissions that we usually offer our clients, which is 5% for total for the selling the home. If we are the buyer's agent as well, so if we do what's called double ending, and it is not in multiple offers, then we reduce the overall commission to 3.5%. Because we know that there's some work that's not getting duplicated because we're on both sides there, and we want to give a little bit of leeway to the seller so that they, you know, they understand that there's some margin being built in there for us, you know, doing both sides of that transaction. The reason we don't do that in multiple offers is because you are supposed to give a level playing field to all buyers when they come and offer on a property. And if we were to reduce our commission total relative to other realtors coming in when there's multiple offers, then it would create an unlevel playing field, and it would give an advantage to realtors who did not have an agent of their own. And that's not what we're seeking. We want all buyers to have an equal opportunity to purchase the home. Then there's how much we're offering to the buyer brokerage. That's 2.5%, also called a cooperating brokerage. And that 2.5% comes out of the 5% total. So if there's not a situation where you're paying my brokerage 5% and you're paying an extra 2.5% to the buyer's brokerage, no. As a seller, you're paying 5%, and if there is a buyer's broker representing the buyer, which in 97, I would bet, percentage of the cases there is, then 2.5% is going to their brokerage. Now, in any brokerage, all this percentage is split up further. So like the 5% or the 2.5% that, you know, I would typically go to my brokerage is split up further. Some portion of that comes to me, some of that stays with the brokerage, but that's not really in the scope here. If you want to know how that's broken down when we list a property, just let me know. There's a spot called the holdover period. That's that 90 days there in this paragraph. And this just means that if during the course of the listing, you know, it's going to, a buyer is introduced to the property. And that could be whether they see it on MLS, whether they came to an open house, whether they're a buddy of yours that mentioned that they like the house, and our listing agreement expires or is canceled or whatever, and it's terminated for some reason. And that buyer makes an offer on the house within 90 days, which is accepted. So 90 days from the end of the listing agreement, my team and I would have a right to that commission. So it's presumed that it's our marketing that brought that person to the house. And so we would be entitled to the commission during the holdover period. That paragraph is simply to protect the brokerage. That's why that's in there. As much as I like all of you, you know, I do like getting paid at the end. So that's why we have that one. Spot for everybody to sign or initial on the first page. And then we're on to section 3, which is representation. So I've talked about this in my discussion on the working with a realtor form, and in the buyer representation agreement, we have that in there. But it's the same thing when you're listing a home. This paragraph talks about how I need to have talked to you about how representation works, how you are being represented as a client when you list a home with us, and how multiple representation works. So if I'm listing your home and either my team or I bring the buyer, or somebody else from my brokerage brings the buyer, because remember, you're being represented legally by the brokerage, not just me, then there's certain steps we need to take. So number one, the listing brokerage is not allowed to disclose, so I'm not allowed to disclose that the seller, that's you, may or will accept less than the listed price, that the buyer may or will pay more than the listed price, or the offer price, sorry, the motivation or personal information about you or the buyer, unless otherwise instructed, or whether there's some reason we must disclose. So, you know, the buyer is related to me or something like that. The price which the buyer should offer, or the price the seller should accept, or the listing brokerage, we're not allowed to disclose to the buyer the terms of any other offer. So if we have more than one offer, or an offer that's coming in the past, we are not allowed to tell the seller what the terms of or tell the buyer what the terms of those offer was. Obviously, as the seller, you're going to see all those offers. Multiple representation and customer service. So if we have someone who's interested in your home, so say somebody comes in on an open house and is interested in writing an offer, I can also have the option of representing them as a customer, where I can explain that I owe duties to you first and foremost, in this case to Mary and Mark Messier first and foremost, but any personal information they tell me or motivation, I need to tell Mark and Mary. So my allegiance is not to the buyer as a listing agent. Number 4 is finder's fees. So if I worked with anybody that offered finder's fees, such as, if I referred you to a lawyer and they paid me a kickback for sending them clients, number 1, I would have to disclose that to you. Number 2, in order to accept it, I would have to get your permission in writing. I solve that by not working with anybody who gives finder's fees. Anybody that I refer to you or that my team refers to you, we do it because they're good professionals. They make us look good by doing good work for you. And you can find a lot of those on our website if you want any professional inquiries, or you can just send me an email. Number 5 is referral of inquiries. This is your responsibility as a seller. So Mark and Mary, who've listed the house, if they, if somebody walks by while Mark's in the garden and says, hey, I like your house, I see it's for sale, you think I could arrange a visit, they have a duty to disclose that to me. They're supposed to know. That helps me do my job, and that's how they're helping me do my job. Number 6 is marketing. So by listing, you're giving the listing agent a mandate to market the home. Number 7 is warranty. So the seller represents and warrants that the seller actually is allowed to sell the home, that they're the real owner of the house or have the real authority to sell this house. Number 8 is indemnification and insurance. So this is you as a seller. Now, this is where law differs from reality a little bit sometimes, I would say. So this is saying that if somebody were to, for example, slip and fall on your front step, if you were to have something stolen during an open house, that the seller cannot sue the brokerage for this. Unless it's by real negligence or sort of willful negligence by the listing agent, it's considered that the brokerage can be held harmless from this. So it's not the listing brokerage's fault if that were to happen. Now, in reality, if you were to have something stolen during an open house, I think it would kind of be my moral duty as the person hosting the open house to make you whole and reimburse you for whatever happened. Or if somebody broke something, say they, broke a glass or something that would happen to be sitting on your counter, I would make that up to you somehow. But from a legal sense, this is just saying that the brokerage is held harmless. And I'm recording a few of these today. Number 9 is the Family Law Act. So if you have 2 people who live in a property that are married, and only one of them is an owner. So say Mark bought the property before he married Mary. Mary is the spouse, but she's a non-owner spouse. She's not on title for the house. If this house is to be listed, she has to sign off on that and say that it's okay to be listed. In Ontario, you cannot sell a family marital home if either of the spouses do not consent to selling the home. And that includes even if one of those spouses is not an owner of the house. Number 10 is verification of information. So this is my responsibility to speak to Mark and Mary and make sure any details I collect about the house are accurate. 11 is use and distribution of information. So any information that we collect about the seller, so their names, addresses, social insurance numbers, if we had those, photos of your IDs, stuff like that, that we typically collect. Those are not being shared with other people. Those are not being used to market to you. Like, we're not selling those to other institutions to market to you and stuff like that. They're used simply for the sale of this home. Now we have that box on page 3, just at the end of 11 there. And this says that in the event that this agreement expires or is canceled or otherwise terminated and the property is not sold, the seller, by initialing one of these boxes, consent to allow other real estate board members to contact the seller after expiration. So this refers to some realtors will they'll do what's called farming expired listings. So if they see that a listing has expired, so their agent didn't get the job done of getting it sold, they will call or contact or knock on the door of the seller to see if they can be the next realtor. So it said, hey, I saw your realtor didn't get the job done. I would like to come list your home. How does that sound to you? This is simply whether you want to be on that list or not. It's up to you whether you sign it. 99 out of 100 people I've worked with put do not. So it doesn't mean you can't work with another realtor. It just means that they can't chase you down to go try and get your business. Number 12, successors and assigns. So this says that this is still a valid contract, even if one of the sellers who's listed it, were to become incapacitated or pass away. So let's say Mark and Mary Messier are selling this house to move to a condo because Mark's in kind of poor health, and Mark unfortunately passes away during the listing period. Well, if Mary wants to keep listing the house, she can. She doesn't need to write a new listing agreement. It doesn't automatically dissolve just because Mark has unfortunately passed. I've run into this situation in real life before. It holds true. I had a seller one time who was quite elderly, and he passed away, and his wife, who was also one of the sellers, wanted to keep selling the house. They didn't live there anymore. They just wanted to move on from it. Conflict or discrepancy. So there'll be a Schedule A that goes with this, and I'm covering that in the next video here. If there's anything that we write in Schedule A that conflicts with this listing agreement, it's assumed that Schedule A wins. Number 14 and 15, electronic communication and electronic signatures. This just says that this listing agreement can be communicated electronically, so via email or file sharing or what have you, and it can be signed electronically. So an electronic signature on one of these documents is legal and binding. Number 16 says that Schedule A is attached. And then there's a spot for me to sign to say that I bind the brokerage to Mark and Mary Messier, that I'm comfortable representing them. And then there's a spot for Mark and Mary Messier to sign and say that they are comfortable listing their home with our brokerage. They're signing under seal. That's that black dot there. It's a solemn and serious type of signature. And if one of them was a non-owner spouse, they'd sign the spousal consent spot there. And then there's the declaration of insurance. I sign that again to say that I am indeed a real realtor with all my insurance and dues and things paid up. And then there's the last part that says where Mark and Mary signed to say that they've received a copy of the listing agreement. So there you go. I'm Nick Funditis from Royal LePage Performance Realty and in Ottawa, and I hope that you found this helpful. If you are looking for more information like this, you can find it on our YouTube channel or our site at nickfunditis.ca. We believe in educating clients who are interested in making a purchase or a sale of a home, because we think that it is something that is important. We think that it is something that you should understand, and you should have access to free information like this so that you can make good decisions. There are never any bad questions. So if you have questions about this or any of our videos, reach out to me at nick@nickfunditis.ca or one of my various contact methods through our website. Take care, and we'll talk soon.